Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Inspiration Wednesday session. My name is Tara. I'm with the Trivantis training team. Before we get started on today's call, just a couple of housekeeping items that I'd like to go over with you. If this is your first Inspiration Wednesday, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you've joined us in the past, you may have a better understanding as to how these are going to go. First, you've probably noticed that your audio has been muted. There are several of us on today's call, so with everyone's audio muted, then we don't have to worry about background noise, and everyone will be able to hear the presentation nice and clear. If I could have just a little bit of feedback from you first, you'll see there is a chat or a questions panel there in that GoToMeeting panel. If you could let me know, number one, that you can hear my audio, and number two, that you can see my screen. You should see my Inspiration Wednesday presentation. Once I get a little bit of feedback, oh, there we go. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate that feedback. You're always a little bit more awake than I am, I think, on the 9 a.m. call. Okay, great. So if this is your first time joining, the way we work these Inspiration Wednesdays is we typically do maybe a half an hour to 45 minutes of content first, and then the last 15 minutes or so, we always open that up for a question and answer. Now, since your audio is muted, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to jot those down in the same questions or chat panel that you're working with now for that feedback. I'll do my best to address those as we go throughout the presentation, but most likely one of my colleagues, I believe Gina White is on the line, she'll be able to handle a lot of the questions that might come through in that chat window. At the end of the presentation, certainly anything that wasn't addressed, I'll comb through that chat window and we'll make sure that we get those questions answered. This session, like all of our previous Inspiration Wednesday sessions, is being recorded. It will be available on our website in just a few short days. We have, I think, of now just about 100 archived videos. So certainly if you or your colleagues can't always sit in on the live sessions, we do record these. They will be available out on our website. So don't worry about that. If you want to kind of go through this content once again, it'll be available for you to do so. All right, let's go ahead and get started with today's topic. Today's topic is going to focus on utilizing Camtasia Studio 8 and utilizing a new feature that they have in there for quizzing. Now, when we work with Camtasia, we're focusing always on the version that's included with Lectora Inspire. So those of you that have Lectora Inspire, you know that's sort of like the Cadillac version of Lectora. It includes Camtasia, which is your screen recording and video editing tool. It includes Snagit, which is your screen capture and image editing tool. And it also includes Flypaper, which is your custom Flash animation builder. So what we're doing is we're focusing now on the fact that with version 11 of Lectora, we've now upgraded to Camtasia Studio 8. And with that upgrade, compared to the previous version, we now have the availability to add quizzing within our video content. So today's call is really going to focus on, number one, how you can create quizzes within your video content, and number two, how you can generate reports from those videos and from those quizzes so you can see how your learner is truly interacting with that content. So we've got a couple of cool things to show you on today's call. Let's go ahead and dive right in. The first thing we really want to address is let's talk about, most importantly, how do we create a quiz within Camtasia? It's very easy to do. A lot of you who've been working with Camtasia and you've been adding your callouts and your zoom and pans, adding a quiz is almost just that easy. Now, one of the biggest tips I can give you on today's call is if you're looking to integrate quizzes within your Camtasia content, within your video content, make sure you finalize all that video content first. So what do I mean by that? Make sure that you've got your timing, you've got your cuts down, your edits down, your video is looking the way you want it to. Then you can go back through and add quizzes throughout your content. Now, when you add quizzes in your Camtasia videos, you can have more than one quiz. Quizzes, there's no limit for how many questions you have contained in each quiz, so that's a nice feature there. And if you take a look at the screenshot, we're going to show you a real quiz in just a moment, but you can see here's an idea of what that quiz might look like when it pops up within your video. One second, I'm just getting a little feedback from, can everyone see my screen? The audience view looks like it's showing my screen, so if I could get just a little bit of feedback, Someone in, okay, it looks like everyone can see my screen. I apologize, looked like maybe one person was having an issue, so. Okay, great. Just wanted to get that feedback. Thanks everybody, appreciate it. All right, so before I go through the steps of showing you how to add a quiz and insert a quiz into your video, let's show you a sample so you can really see what one looks like. So if you take a look, one of the things I've done is, let's assume I was creating a very short, maybe like a mini how-to or a little tutorial about creating text buttons in Lectora. So you can see I have this sample course here. And we're talking about the different types of buttons you can create. And as I go throughout this little sample content, eventually I might want to show a video to my learners. So the next page, I'm going to pull up a video. It was created with Camtasia. And my example here is just how to create a text button in Lectora. And what I'm going to do, you won't be able to hear the audio of the video, but that's not really important because I'm using my headset. But I'm going to pull up this video for you. I'm going to show you what the quiz looks like that we've embedded to the end of the video. So let's pull up that video here. And hopefully I've got your audience view, but sometimes that GoToMeeting is a little delayed, especially when it comes to video content. So here's my video, and I'm going to hit play. And the first thing that you're going to notice is when you set up your quizzes in Camtasia, which I'll show you this in just a short moment, the first thing you can do, if you've included a quiz within that video, is you can pop up this message that asks the learner to enter their name and email address. So I can certainly provide this information here. Now, why might this information be important to you? Because a little bit later in today's call, I'm going to show you how you can generate reports via email or through a learning management system so that you can generate information about how the learners went through those quizzes that are embedded in your video content. So by me entering my name and my email address, it makes that reporting much, much easier and much easier to identify. So when I select Watch Video and Take Quiz, all it's going to do is load my video and start playing. Now, for the sake of our call today, I'm going to go ahead and pause that timeline down at the bottom. Now, one of the things, I know it might be a little difficult to see because it's small, but you'll notice when I work within this timeline all the way towards the end, not quite at the very end, but you'll see this little round dot. This represents a quiz that I've included within my video. So I'm going to fast forward through the video a little bit just so I can take you to that quiz element. So I'm going to go towards the end there. So notice when my video timeline reaches that specific point, that's where I just have a quiz placeholder, if you will. I can choose to either take the quiz now, or maybe if my learner wasn't quite ready to take that quiz, I can replay that last section. So when I select Take Quiz Now, it launches my quiz. It's built within my video. And the nice thing is that I've included this in a video, yes, but it's also interactive. So my learner can still answer each of these questions. So I've made a simple quiz here, just 3 different questions, and we'll go over the different question types you have available to you in just a moment. But I've made a very simple, just a sample quiz, so you can see what one looks like. And here's a fill in the blank question. Now I can submit all of my answers here. And you can even set up the ability where once the learner has submitted their answers, you can show them, did they get these answers correct or incorrect, so they can select view answers, or if they don't want to view those answers, they can continue watching the rest of your video. So if I select view answers, it looks like something like this, where now I can review each of those questions. And when I select next, it just takes me through each of those question types, and I'll be able to then continue with the rest of my video. Now I know in that chat window, I'm not going to address them all now, but we're getting questions about what format you need to use, what version, is this SCORM, is this AICC? I'm going to get into all of that, okay? So just bear with me. Just wanted to show you an example of what that quiz video might look like. So let's go back to our presentation a little bit. Now, the first thing I mentioned, tip number one, definitely create your quizzes once your video content has been finalized. It's going to be much easier on you if you can add those quizzes in once you know you've got your video looking the way you want it to. So I wouldn't want to put my quiz in and then realize there's a whole section of my video that I want to cut down. So first, now, again, the purpose of today's call is not to give you a complete how-to in Camtasia, all right? So we're assuming that you're at least familiar with creating some video content in Camtasia. So if you take a look at the first step, and we'll build this from scratch in just a moment, but if you take a look at the first step, the very first thing you're going to want to do, so here's a screenshot of my video timeline that I'm creating in Camtasia. The first thing that I'm going to want to do is drop down this little view icon and select this option that says Show Quiz View. Now, another tip. First tip was build your quiz after your video content is finalized. The second tip, and I've got this bolded down here at the bottom for you, the minimum dimension for any video in Camtasia that will support quizzing is 640 by 480. The quizzes are not going to resize with the video, so you have to have at least a minimum size video of 640 by 480. So that's an important tip to kind of take with you as we move forward. So first option here is we want to set Show Quiz View. Now when you select that option, and we'll see this a little bit zoomed in when we do it for real in just a moment, but you'll see this whole nother panel kind of drop down within your timeline. Looks like another track, if you will, and it says Quiz. This is where, if you embed quizzes within your video, they are going to exist on this timeline and this special track. Now, once you have this quiz track showing, there'll be an option available within your menu called Quizzing. So when you select that option, very similar to how you would select for callouts or how you would select to add a zoom and pan, you're simply going to select this quizzing option, and there'll be a button on the top left for you to choose Add Quiz. In this window on the left-hand side, which you'll see in real time in a moment, this is your whole quiz creator. This is where you can add as many questions as you want within a quiz. There's no limit to the amount of questions that you add. And you have a couple different question types that you can choose from. You can choose from multiple choice, fill in the blank, short answer, and true and false. For each of those questions, you can have a maximum of 30 different possible answer choices. So kind of keep those numbers in mind. You can have as many questions as you want in a quiz, and then for each of your question types, you can have up to 30 possible correct answers. Now, of the questions that are available in Camtasia, the only one that is not gradable is going to be that short answer question. We'll show you a little bit later when we talk about reports that you can still determine what your user answered to those types of questions, but they do not get considered or counted towards that overall score. So once you configure your questions, you'll see here's a better view of that questions panel where you'll create all of your questions. You'll notice within this panel there is a preview button. And when you select this, this is going to launch in your default browser so that you can really see what this quiz is going to look like within your video. So the question you're probably asking is, well, why do I have to launch that in a browser just to preview what my test is going to look like? You know, can I just rewind my video and play it back and see it in the Camtasia preview screen? It's not going to work that way. Tip number 3, or point number 3 that you want to remember, if you're using quizzes in a Camtasia video, your content has got to be hosted for you to see and work with the quiz, or for you to generate reports with that quiz. So this is going to allow you just to preview this out as you're building it, because it won't natively show up in that Camtasia preview mode. So similar to how some of our objects in Lectora, if we're using a web object, for example, sometimes we have to preview that out once the content is hosted or preview that out in a browser. It's the same kind of idea there. Once your quiz is created, you can see it sort of acts just like your typical callout, and it will rest or reside within this special quiz track. Now you can have several question sets in your video, and each set is going to add up to that total score. So if you wanted more than one quiz within your video, you would simply repeat those steps until you have all the desired question sets that you want for your video. So let's show you this real time. Now that we have some sort of an idea as to how the steps are working, let's go ahead and show you how to add a quiz in Camtasia. So I'm going to pull up Camtasia on my screen here. I'm just looking at that audience view, and it looks like everyone now should be seeing my Camtasia screen. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. Again, this is not a how-to for beginners on how to use Camtasia. We're assuming that you've created some video content before. So what you're seeing, just a brief overview, here's that text button video that I showed you earlier. And I've got my different tracks. I've got everything finalized that I want in my video. So here's my audio, here's my video. I've got several call outs and various effects already built into my video here. So the first thing I'm going to want to do, so step number one, was I was going to come to this view icon. And when I drop this down, I'm going to select this option that says Show Quiz View. Now you'll see as soon as I select that, I get this, it almost looks to me like a special track, and it's called Quiz. So when you create quizzes within your Camtasia videos, you're going to see those positioned here. Now, just like you would with any other object that you're adding to your video, you need to select the area within your timeline that you actually want to add your quiz. So I'm going to position my timeline here or my scrubber here towards the end. So as soon as my video is done, that's when I want my quiz to actually pop up to the learner. So I've positioned my scrubber down towards the end of my video. Now, the next thing I'll need to do is go and add my quiz. If you look at my screen, the way I've got it kind of laid out right now, I don't see that icon here called quizzing. And this really just depends on how you've got your screen set up. So notice if I make that preview window smaller, I get some additional menu options to work with, and there you can see that quizzing option. If you want to keep your preview window larger, which I do, keep it somewhat larger, you can always just use that More drop down, and then that's where I can select the quizzing. So I know sometimes in training we get that question where, my screen looks a little different than yours. Why does it look different? And it's really just based on your screen size and your resolution and how you chose to kind of lay out your overall application. All right, so here I have my quizzing tab selected. I've got my scrubber positioned within my video timeline where I want to add that quiz. So I'm going to select the Add Quiz icon from the top left. As soon as I select Add Quiz, you'll see a quiz placeholder where it's just going to say a quiz appears at this location on the timeline. To see how the quiz appears in the video, click the Preview button in the Quizzing tab. And you can see that over here on the left-hand side. So let's fill out some information. Let's get a quiz created here. I'm going to call this my text button wizard. This is my quiz. Now the name of your quiz is going to show up at the top of each of your questions contained within that quiz. So just keep that in mind. Now the next thing I can do, you can see right now it's populated with just one default question. So I'm going to go ahead and change this up a little bit. The first question I'll create, I'll choose that multiple choice question, and I'll just type in some text. I'll say, the text button wizard can be located from which Lectora ribbon? And I can go down below and create my answer choices. So maybe I'll say the tools ribbon, maybe I'll say the insert ribbon, and the home ribbon. I'll indicate that the correct answer is the insert ribbon. And now you can see above in my questions window, I have the very first question created. If you want to add another question, we can select that option here. And I'll choose to create this time maybe a true and false type question. So notice you only have the 4 standard question options available in Camtasia. Again, the only one that's not gradable is that short answer. You can choose the shape, size, color, and text of buttons you create in Lectora. Correct answer there being true. And I'll go ahead and add just one more question type. And this time I'll choose a fill in the blank question. So my fill in the blank answer here would be an action. Okay, so now I have my 3 questions. Remember, I could have added as many questions as I wanted to this quiz, but you get the idea. 4 question types to choose from, so certainly a different sampling than what you might have available within Lectora. If you take a look on the left-hand side of this window, I want to make sure that Score Quiz is selected, and I also want to make sure that the viewer can see the answers after submitting. Now, certainly if you did not want them to be able to review the correct answers after they've already submitted their responses, you do not need to select that option. If you look down below on my video timeline, you can now see that with the length of the question, so as I added more questions to the quiz, the length of this, let's say, call out, if you will, has expanded to show up within my overall timeline. Now I can reposition this quiz anywhere I want within that timeline just by dragging and repositioning, just like you could do with a text call out, with a shape call out, etc., etc. So far, we've gone through the process of creating a quiz and adding it to our video. Now, if I had wanted multiple quizzes within this video, I would have followed those same steps again. So I would have repositioned my scrubber in the timeline where I want the next quiz, and then I would have added a second or third quiz to my video. Now let's go back and learn about the formats that are needed to support quizzing and how we go about producing this type of video, because there are a couple different options and 2 different avenues that I really want to kind of provide for you. So I'm going to go back to my presentation here. Make that a little bit larger. All right, so once your video is added, or once your quiz rather, is added to your video, there are a couple of guidelines that I want you to take to make sure that your video is going to support that type of interaction like quizzing. So here, when you go to produce your video in Camtasia, and we'll follow these steps again in our real project, but just as an overview first, when you go to produce your video in Camtasia, there are a couple of different formats that will support quizzing. The first, you can publish out to screencast.com. This is created by TechSmith. It's a video hosting site, so certainly you can publish out your videos to Screencast and share them that way. Or you can select the MP4 with video player options. The nice thing about the MP4 with the video player is that it's going to use a TechSmith Smart Player, so that's what's going to allow you to actually interact with the quizzes. So that's what's needed for any interaction like hotspots and things like that. Now in our example, we're going to go through the custom production settings, because custom production settings is what you want to select if you plan on utilizing any of these videos and creating reports based on the quizzes within the video. So certainly if you had a video that had a quiz and you wanted to have the learner go through it, you could publish out to screencast.com, free to create an account there. They have a certain limit, I think it's 2 gigabytes, not really sure what that limit is, but it's a free account on screencast.com. You could also publish out to your different MP4 options, or you could go through that custom production settings like we're going to show you on today's call. Now, once you go forward, and assuming we're choosing that custom production settings, the first thing you'll want to make sure you select is this MP4-flash/HTML5 player. This is the format that's going to support quizzing and any other interaction like your captions and your hotspots. The other formats that you see here are not going to support quizzes. So So the only viable option you'll have here is to select this MP4 Flash / HTML5 player. And the way this works, we know MP4 is great. Why? Because it's cross-compatible. We can use it on our iDevices, for example. And the way this works is that when you are running this video, and it's going to offer your quiz, it looks first to see if there's any Flash availability. If there's not, then it goes to HTML5. So that's why it can use kind of that either-or scenario. But this is the only format you can use if you want to use quizzes within your videos. So once you select that, you'll just continue moving through this production wizard. And the next thing you'll want to do is make sure within the options that you have this quizzing option selected. Once you continue moving throughout this production wizard, you'll finally be presented with this option that says maybe you don't want any quiz reporting, or maybe you want to report your quiz results using SCORM or report them through an email. So we're going to focus on those two branches and those two avenues in just a minute. But for right now, let's go back to our Camtasia video and kind of walk through that production process. So let's assume at this point we have all the videos that we want in place. We've created them just like we did here, just like we did a moment ago, and now we're ready to produce this video. So just like you would, you'd come up to your Produce and Share button. And remember, you have several different output options available. You could select screencast.com. Videos will not work when you publish them out to YouTube, so screencast.com would kind of be a good alternative to that. If you wanted to host that somewhere, you can host it on Screencast. You could select your MP4 with video player options, so those will be compatible with your quizzes. But since I want to set up reporting, I'm going to select this option that says Custom Production Settings. I'm going to select that here. As I move forward in my production wizard, the most important thing here is that I select the MP4 Flash / HTML5 player option. Remember, none of these other formats are going to support quizzing or any other interactions like hotspots. As I move throughout the options here, I'll come to an Options tab, and I'll just make sure that quizzing is turned on here, and I'll keep moving forward within my wizard. I don't need to include a watermark graphic, but if I wanted to, I could plug that in here, certainly with my video as well, but I'll keep moving forward. Now, when you get to this window, you'll have a couple of different options. You can say, you know what, I want the quiz, I want the user to be able to interact with that quiz in my video, but I don't really need to run any reports on it. So we'll select no quiz reporting for this option. If you were to continue within the production process at this point without that quiz reporting, it's just going to create that MP4 video for you. You can add that MP4 video to your projects, to your lectura titles, etc., etc. You'll have a quiz that the learner can interact with, but you won't be able to generate any reports. So that's the difference. If you choose no quiz reporting, that's great. We're still using a format that quizzes are supported, but you won't be able to collect any information. Now, what I'd like to do at this point is I want to break down the two different options here. So, well, how does this work if I'm reporting using SCORM, and how does this work if I'm reporting using email? So we'll come back and finish out this publish process in a second, but for right now, we'll go back to our presentation title. Let's first talk about reporting out to SCORM. Now, when you create your video content in Camtasia, you can actually create a complete SCORM package just from that video. So, it might not always be necessary to create a video, add it to a lectura title, publish that out to SCORM, and upload that to your learning management system. Maybe you have just a short tutorial, it's one video, at the end of that video you have a quiz, and maybe that's all you need. Well, you can publish directly to SCORM, create that SCORM package from Camtasia, and upload it into your learning management system. I'll give you an idea of what that would look like in just a second. So here's that production wizard window that we just saw. And if you had selected report quiz results using SCORM, you get the following SCORM options. Now, the first thing that you'll see is this identifier number. This is automatically created for you. It's going to be added to your SCORM manifest file. So this is going to serve as that globally unique identifier for your entire SCORM package. Now, unless you have a good reason for changing this identifier, we recommend leaving this name as is. Now, the next couple of options you'll see here, plug in a title for this video, plug in a description, plug in a subject, etc., etc. We know that every learning management system is different. This is what we say in our Lector training classes as well. This is where you're going to have to check to see if your specific system is going to pull this information from that manifest file, or if you're going to have to enter it yourself within that system. So it depends on the LMS that you're working with. Does it pull in the title, the description, and the subject here, or do you enter that in later within your own system? So that's something each one of you will have to kind of play around with a little bit. Now, you can select your version. Now, Camtasia does not support AICC right now. Don't know if they have any future plans for that, but right now it reports only for SCORM. It creates SCORM packages for SCORM 1.2 or SCORM 2004. So again, depending on the system that you're using, you have to select which version is going to work best for you, and you can do that right here. At the bottom, it just gives you some options for your SCORM package. Do you want to produce a zip file, produce unzipped files, or produce both? Now again, this depends on the system that you're working with. Most of your learning management systems, I believe, are going to ask you for that zipped file. When it asks you to import in that content, that's the file that you're going to upload right into that learning management system. So the options here, fairly straightforward. Again, when you work with Camtasia in terms of creating video content that can be utilized in a learning management system, you are a little limited. It has to be either SCORM 1.2 or SCORM 2004. But the options that it's asking you for here are really just dependent upon what system you're using. You know, can I put the title and the description in here, or should I add that a little bit later when I'm uploading into the system itself? So that's something that you'll play around with a little bit. Couple more things just regarding SCORM. We'll show you this firsthand in just a second. Once your package is created, so you've gone through that production process in Camtasia, now you have your SCORM package. Now you're just going to follow your own learning management system procedures to upload that content into your system. Now remember, we said every learning management system is a little different in regard to what it can report on, but keep in mind, when you create a SCORM package with Camtasia, the information Camtasia will send your learning management system for your video is a completion status, is the raw score, and is a pass or fail status information. So that's the information that you will get sent to your learning management system. So that's what Camtasia is going to send if you've got a SCORM package. Something to be aware of, the way that this is going to work, your learners have got to watch the video in its entirety in order to be marked as complete. So by default, if you create a SCORM package with your video content from Camtasia, let's say it's a 2-minute video, your learner has got to watch that full 2 minutes in order to get that 100% completion status. Now if you take a look at my screenshot here, you can see, I'll show you this text button example in just a second, but when I've uploaded that project, that video, into my learning management system, automatically I can generate a score. This is based on the quiz. This bases it on just 100% standard quiz. And then the percentage, this is my completion. So yes, my user did watch the entire video because they got this 100% set here. The score of that quiz, however, they must have missed a question because it's a 3-question quiz and they only received a score of a 66. So this is just a screenshot from our learning management system, which is CourseMill, which is what we tested this SCORM package on. So you can kind of see an idea or an example of how that reporting information could come through on your end in that LMS end. Now, one thing I will like to mention And this is just comes from me kind of scoring the TechSmith community forums. But there are a couple things that Camtasia is looking to add soon in regard to SCORM publishing. Soon you'll have the ability to set a viewing percentage that's going to trigger your incomplete or your complete status. So that'll be a really nice feature, because what I just said is right now learners have to watch the entire video in order to mark that as complete. Well, soon you'll have the ability to kind of add triggers where you want that to be marked as complete. So it won't always have to be watch every last second of that video to get that completion status. Another new thing that they're planning to add soon is the ability to set a minimum passing score. So that'll be two nice features that you can look forward to in regard to the options you'll have when publishing for SCORM. Now let's go back to our Camtasia project here. And you can see my production wizard window. This is sort of where we left off. So I'm going to go ahead and select this option, report quiz results using SCORM. So the first thing I'll show you today is we'll go through and we'll do the SCORM options, then we'll go through and do the email options. So with my SCORM options, I'm going to leave that identifier as it's been created for me. Notice I've plugged these in earlier, so it still comes up each time I republish. So I'm just going to leave that title. I've got a little description in here. I'm publishing for SCORM 1.2 because that's what I need to use for CourseMill, which is just our learning management system at Trivantis, and then I'll produce that zip file. When I select OK, I'll just continue going through the production wizard process. It's going to show me where that package is going to be created. And when I select Finish, it's going to go through and render out that video. So the nice thing here is what this is going to do for me. It's going to create that zip file. I don't need to show you this entire process, so I'll go ahead and cancel that. But it's going to create that zip file, and then what I can do is I can upload that into CourseMill, which is our learning management system. And just to show you an idea here, let's say I've been registered for this course. You can upload your entire video package. Now it's a SCORM package, and my learners can launch it like they would any other course. So you can see here on my screen, I'm just going to launch that video. So you can see my video here, and it would just play out. I could fast forward and get down to that quiz again. And hopefully, I know sometimes going through video on a GoToMeeting, it gets a little hung up, but my audience view looks like now it's showing that quiz. So there's just an example, same example I showed you earlier, but this example, it's just the video that's been uploaded into my learning management system. So now that this information is in my learning management system, whatever your system has in regard to reporting capabilities, that's now where you can run all of that. So here I watched the whole video, but I didn't take the quiz, so my score is still a 0, etc., etc. So you saw some of that in our preview window, where I just kind of gave you that screenshot. So you can run your reports and generate that information as you would in your learning management systems. So a couple nice features there. Definitely looking forward to some of those features that are coming soon in regard to the SCORM publishing. Let's show you one last thing before we go to the questions panel. And this last piece I want to talk about is how you can report to email. And this is a really nice feature because you don't have to use our learning management system to run these types of reports. So first, if you take a look, we're going to go revisit that same production wizard window. Only this time, we're going to select this option here to report quiz results through email. The first thing that you need to do is just enter what your recipient email address should be. You'll want to make sure that you enter this email address in correctly, because if you type in something that's incorrect here, you publish this out, and then you host your video, you're going to have to redo that. You're going to have to redo, republish, and then rehost. So kind of try to get that email address in here as accurately as possible. Now, anyone who takes your quiz, remember, if you're doing reporting, your quiz has got to be hosted. So whether you're hosting it on your server, whether you host it on screencast.com, doesn't matter, but your content has got to be hosted in order for this reporting to work. Now, the way this reporting is going to work, quiz results will be sent once per day if any new data is presented. So what I have found in doing my tests is that typically, I'm on the Eastern Standard Time Zone, typically quiz results are sent at 9 p.m. So any new data that was collected that day, let's say I've had my quiz hosted and, one day 5 more people take the quiz, then I'm going to get a report that night at 9 o'clock showing the results of those 5 new people that have taken that quiz. So in terms of showing you on today's call, it won't generate an email report immediately. I would have to wait until 9 p.m. to collect those results, but I will show you the results that I got last night. So once you enter in your email information, at the bottom you can simply select, do you want to require your viewers to input their name and their email address? This is definitely something you would want to do if when you're receiving that report, you want to be able to clearly identify who it was that responded to the questions, then that's something you want to enter in here. If you're doing something more like a survey, you can certainly allow that to be anonymous. So your choice, you simply select that option here. Now, before we finish out this process in our Camtasia project, just want to kind of go over, well, what are you going to get when this email report actually comes in? So a couple of things to keep in mind here. When this email report is sent to you or the recipient, it's always going to come from TechSmith services. So you want to make sure that those emails are not going to spam. Remember, this is sent once a night. So if you're on the Eastern Standard Time, it's usually around 9 p.m. The email subject is always going to be the name of your video plus the words quiz report. So that's something to keep an eye out. The body of your email is going to contain a simple quiz summary. It's going to show you any new responses since the last report, how many responses are in your current report, things like average score, average percent of the video viewed, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of a quick glance. It's nice. You don't always have to always open up the reports that are attached. You can do a nice quick glance right there within your email body. Attached to the email are going to be 2 CSV reports. And if you take a look, you'll have one CSV report that is a detailed quiz report and one CSV report that is more or less a summary quiz report. These are CSV files, so you can conveniently open those in Excel or maybe Google Spreadsheets, something like that. Let me show you the 2 spreadsheets that came through for my example, my text button example that we've been working with. The first one, and again, this came through last night at 9 o'clock, so remember, those are only sent out once a day, so even if showing you on this call, I won't be able to stay on long enough to actually get the report. But this will give you a good idea of what information you'll get. So here, these are the name and the email address. This is pulled in. Remember when I showed you that first video, it gave me that box and it asked me to type in my name, my first and last names, and my email address. So that's where it pulls that information from. Next is just the name of your quiz. So you can identify what report it is you're actually looking at. Here it's going to show the question number. It's going to show what kind of question type that was. It shows you your question text, how the viewer answered those questions, and then it also shows you the correct answer. If they answered the question correctly, percentage of segment viewed, so how much of that video did they view, and the time it took to complete. So a couple different options available here. This is more or less your detailed report. The other report that gets generated is more or less a summary report. So you can see here, still has some great information, but it's not quite as detailed in the sense that it doesn't go into each of your question types. So it doesn't show you, question text, what the user answered versus what the correct answer was, et cetera, et cetera. But it still gives you some nice information. It's in a spreadsheet format, so certainly you can do with that as you will. And you'll get one of these every night, once a day, and any new data that was completed that day is going to be in that new nightly report. So remember, keep in mind, if you're utilizing the email reporting option, you'll want to select that here from the custom production settings. You'll definitely want to make sure your MP4 is selected. Make sure quizzing is turned on. And then here, you'll simply identify that you want to report the quiz results through email. Require viewers to input name and email address. As long as that is selected, they'll receive that little pop-up message asking them for that information. If it was a survey, you could select the second option, and it wouldn't require them to enter their name and their email address. When you go through your publish process, again, this is going to run through that process, and it's just going to create an MP4 video. You can embed that in a title. You can embed that, you can upload that to a hosting site, however you want, but wherever that video goes, it has to be hosted. You saw my example. I chose to use it within a Lectora title, so those of you on the call certainly using Lectora, absolutely, you can put it in your title. Make sure it's an MP4, right? It needs to be that format, but make sure your title is being hosted out on a server. That's the only way your reports will be generated. So it's those couple things that you really want to keep in mind. If you want quiz reporting done, you have to make sure your content is hosted. If you want the quiz just to be accessible, you just want the user to be able to interact with the quiz, okay, you don't have to have your content hosted, but it has to be that MP4 format. So those are the big key things to remember in terms of utilizing those video quizzes in your content. Now, before I go to the questions panel, I'm sure there are plenty of questions that have come up throughout the presentation, so I'll do my best to address those. This video is being recorded. You can find it out on our website. If you go to that Lectora University section, you'll see a whole section there for your archived webinars. And this will be up, just give us a couple days to get this up there. And you can access any of the other Inspiration Wednesday sessions that we've created so far. If you have ideas for future topics, I know those of you who are always on the call, you always hear me ask for this, but if you have ideas, topics that would be helpful to you and your colleagues, just give us a shout. We're happy to address those. We're always looking for new ideas and things that will help you. So let me go ahead and see if I can take a stab over here at our questions panel. I know that Gina has been over here answering questions, so I do appreciate that. Couple questions here. I know there's going to be a few questions about some of those text fields that you can include within your Camtasia quizzes. We get a lot of questions, can I customize those? I know I can pull in the name and the email address, but can I pull in any different information, or can I customize text fields that the learner can pull in? Not at the moment. They've got some pretty standard, just default options set for you, which is what I showed you today. Hopefully in the future, maybe that's something we can request from TechSmith to be able to kind of modify those text fields a little bit more to pull in some different information. But right now, it's just going to be those default options. The learner can skip the quiz. If you're giving them the ability to see the video player, absolutely, they can fast forward around the quiz if that's the case. If you have quizzes built into your videos, especially if you pull them into your Lectora titles, you might choose to not display that video player if it's content that they have to watch, if they have to get to the end of the quiz. So that's something to be aware of. If you're showing them that video player, then potentially they could skip over the quiz if they're fast forwarding through. SCORM or AICC compliant, remember, if you're publishing with Camtasia, it's only going to be SCORM 1.2 or SCORM 2004. What format? Again, you always want to use that MP4, that flash/HTML5 format. That's going to allow you to work with those interactions like quizzes and hotspots and things of that nature. Good question here. Videos and quizzes are in Flash, or is it possible to adapt for iPad and similar gadgets? Remember what I showed you here. Let me go back to Camtasia for a second. When you choose this custom production settings and you select this option where it says MP4-Flash/HTML5, this will adapt to any of your devices. If it's a device that can utilize Flash, it will. If it's a device like your iDevices that can't utilize Flash, it'll attempt and go to the HTML5. So you've got that solution all in one there if you select that option here. Yep, good questions. Quizzes don't work when posted to YouTube. That is correct. Is there a workaround for this? Absolutely. You can host out on screencast. Certainly you can upload as a SCORM package, host it within your learning management system, or if you embed it in your title, you can host that title out on your server. Is there a feedback option in the Camtasia quizzes? Yes, that feedback option I showed you before, where the learner can select if they want to view those answers again. It shows a green check mark next to the correct answer, so they would see which one they got correct or incorrect. Unfortunately, right now, there's no way to customize that feedback to anything further, so it's pretty standard right at the moment. When adding acceptable answer options for short answer questions, do we need to include common types and upper and lowercase options? So in terms of maybe a fill in the blank question like I chose where it was action, would you want to create actions with a capital A, actions with a lowercase a? Yes. I just chose a quick example here in terms of me typing that in, but you would want to add a couple of the common types, whatever you would accept from the learner. So similar to how you would do that in Lectora. If our LMS uses only AICC, how do we publish? Well, right now, what you would probably want to do is you would create that video, publish it as an MP4, and embed it. You could certainly embed it into a Lectora title, and you can publish that out to AICC. But right now, if you just wanted that video, you want to create a package and upload that to your LMS, Camtasia only supports SCORM. So you could kind of do it the other way and embed it into your title and upload that into your LMS. That would work. How do you set the mastery score in the quiz in order to pass the quiz and move on in the video? As I mentioned earlier, that's one of the features that are up and coming in Camtasia. So I was reading out on the forum that is a feature that they plan on adding in soon. So you can stay tuned for that. Good question here. Are quiz questions required to be part of a SCORM compliant package? Can I publish to SCORM without quiz questions and have the video marked as complete once the entire video is viewed? Absolutely. You do not have to have a quiz when you publish out to Camtasia. You can include something that doesn't have a quiz, and a video will be marked as complete once the user watches it in entirety. But remember, the way that works right now, your user literally has to watch the video in one sitting from start to end in order to get that completion mark. So keep that in mind. For completion by percent viewed, are there other data values besides score the Camtasia video returns? So would it be possible to manually manipulate those values in Lectora for sending back to the LMS, or could we put events in the video for tracking within Lectora? You can certainly create a video with Camtasia, pull it into your Lectora title, and then manipulate any of your AICC or SCORM variables using events that are on trigger. So I would do that. If you're publishing to SCORM from Camtasia, you won't be able to manipulate those. So if you want to, modify, let's say, your AICC score variable using an event trigger, create a video in Camtasia, publish it as an MP4, pull it into your title, and then you can do all that. So you can kind of work both ways with it. But if you're just using Camtasia, you're not looking and pulling anything into Lectora, and you're going to your learning management system, then no, you won't have those options available. Just the standard default ones that they have available right now. Good question here. If you create this in Camtasia and then put it into PowerPoint and publish it using Snap, will the quiz work as outlined? I have not tried that, Michael, so I can play around with it, but it's not something I've tested as of yet. So I'd have to look into that a little bit more for you. Can you pass Camtasia information to Lectora variables? Not at this point. Camtasia doesn't embed anything like a variable that we'd be able to extract in Lectora. Right now you can use just the standard media options, so I'm done playing, that sort of thing. So it doesn't quite work the same as if you have a flash animation, you can embed variables into that. If you pull that into Lectora, we know we can extract those. Doesn't quite work the same for Camtasia yet. Is there a way to provide the learner with instant feedback after each question or after each quiz? No, the only feedback options are the ones that I showed you. So after the user submits all their answers, there's a button they can click that says view my answers or whatever it said. Right now, that's the only feedback option. So in terms of Camtasia versus Lectora, those of you coming from Lectora, you're like, it seems a little limited. That's unfortunately what they have available right at the moment. So. Okay, I'm just scrolling through here. There's a lot of duplicate questions, so I don't want to keep answering the same one over and over again. How do I create the box asking for learner's name and email in Camtasia? That was right here when you are in your production wizard, and it asks you to select this option that says require viewers to input name and email address. So if you select that, that's going to give you that box in the very beginning of that video that's asking for that information. Can you add 2 different emails to receive the reports? Not at this point. You can only have one recipient or one email address for that. Is the detailed report only a Camtasia offering, or is it available in Lectora, or is it dependent on the LMS? The detailed report is created by TechSmith, the company that creates Camtasia. That's only available for your Camtasia content, so nothing to do with Lectora. It's not LMS dependent, because remember the example I showed you was just generating that through an email. So you don't have to use your learning management system at all to get those quiz results through email. So you can see here, you either choose to go your LMS route with SCORM, or you choose to go the email route with your quiz results. Can you branch within the video based on quizzing? Not based on quizzing, but you can branch your Camtasia videos using hotspots. So you can ask the learner to select, one button versus another button, and it can take you to different areas of that video. What I would recommend there, if you're interested in branching your Camtasia videos, they have some nice recorded tutorials on the TechSmith website. Definitely check some of those out. There's a lot of great Camtasia content out there. I've designed an e-learning in Lectora. Can it be brought into Camtasia? No, you can do it the opposite. If you create something in Camtasia, like a video, for example, you can pull that video into your Lectora title. Is all this functionality available in Camtasia Studio 7? This was available. Remember, we're focusing on the versions of Camtasia that have been included with Lectora Inspire. For the Lectora Inspire users who are working with the version of Camtasia that's associated with that, quizzing is only available now in version 8. If I've done my video quizzing in Camtasia, can I add it to my Lectora Learning, and would the reporting still be an option? Absolutely. You would create your video MP4 format, pull it into your Lectora title, but remember, if you want reporting to be an option, you have to host that title. So that's exactly what I did in this example that I showed you earlier. This is just a Lectora title that I added that video to, which I showed you earlier, and I've got this title out on our server. It's hosted out on our server, and the email report came in last night at 9 o'clock. So absolutely, you can pull this information into your Lectora titles, and you can run your reports, but your content has got to be hosted. Is it possible to translate the quizzes? I'm not sure offhand what Camtasia has in terms of translation options. What I would do, if you're interested in translation for Camtasia, I would definitely check out the TechSmith website, which is just techsmith.com. They'll probably have a little bit more information for you in regard to what Camtasia can do for translations. Obviously, we know the Lectora side of things. Lectora can certainly translate as needed. All right, well, it looks like we have reached the end of our time here. I do appreciate everyone for joining today's call. Make sure you check out the recording. It will be available in the next couple of days. If there's anything that you want to review and go back over or show a colleague, something of that nature. If you're looking for more information, if you're someone who hasn't created much with Camtasia just yet, definitely check out the TechSmith website. They've got a ton of great video tutorials about using Camtasia, a lot of really cool features that I think you might uncover just by going through some of those tutorials. So thanks everyone so much for joining our call again. We appreciate you joining these sessions, and we hope that you find them useful, and we hope to see you again on another session. So thanks again, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.